Meet Taiwan's new president. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party's Lai Ching-te has won a historic third term for his party. International ramifications. The world reacts to Taiwan's big vote. Big expectations. Now that Lai's won, will he be able to fulfill his promises? Plus, the young Taiwanese voting for the first time and their hopes for the new administration. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Lai Ching-te will replace Tsai Ing-wen as president in a historic third term for the Democratic Progressive Party, a win for the continuity candidate after 8 years of the Tsai administration. Sally Jensen reports on Saturday's big vote.
The son of a miner, a former physician, and now Taiwan's next leader. Vice President and ruling Democratic Progressive Party candidate Lai Ching-te has won the country's 8th presidential election of the democracy era.
这场选战让世界看到台湾人民对民主的坚持，两岸之间对话交流才能降低风险。
Lai promises to stand resolute on Taiwan's sovereignty and its relations with neighboring China, the superpower threatening to take Taiwan. By doing so, he says he's carrying on the legacy of his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen.
非常开心，我们又胜利了，台湾又胜利了。
非常开心，台湾终于是走在对的路上，因为我们有一个非常野蛮的国家。 拿武器射向我们，所以我们一定要坚持在民主的路上。
希望大家可以更重视中国对台湾的威胁，还有渗透。
我觉得太棒了，身为台湾人超级骄傲。
Lai beat main opposition candidate Hou Youyi of the Kuomintang, Taiwan's oldest political party, which urges a softer approach to Beijing. But he didn't win by a landslide, taking 40% of the vote compared to 33% for Hou, a former police officer turned mayor of the country's most populous city, New Taipei.
非常遗憾的，未能完成正大门厅，我让大家失望了。我要在这里深深的表达我12万分的歉意，抱歉，对不起大家。
The international spotlight has been on this consequential vote, as Taiwan's seen as the biggest geopolitical flashpoint between the US and China, and its elections as a referendum on cross-strait relations. But for voters here, domestic issues like house prices and low wages were higher up the agenda than usual this time. And in the historically two-party democracy, a third-force candidate captured the hearts and minds of many disillusioned voters. Ke Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party got around 26% of the vote, more than polls had predicted. He's been the most popular choice among Taiwan's youth.
在台湾不是只有蓝绿而已，而且我们也向世界证明，民主始终是台湾最重要的资产。
And it's not just a new president Taiwan has chosen. The public also decided the country's 113-member legislature, with the KMT taking 52 seats, just one more than the DPP. That could mean trouble ahead for Lai and his party, with the legislature almost evenly split and no one party holding a majority. Passing laws will likely be a matter of horse trading.
The DPP is quite a bit down from where they were in 2016 and 2020 in both the presidential and legislative vote totals. And so I think this is also an indication of the DPP's, or voters' kind of disillusionment or fatigue with the DPP. It's a kind of a warning sign that they need to up their game in the next 4 years if they want to remain in office.
But all eyes are now on Lai as he makes history with a third term in office for the DPP, a first for any party since Taiwan became a democracy.
Set to serve a 4-year term, Lai will officially take the reins of government in May. Maintaining his popularity here largely on how he handles domestic economic concerns, but facing increased aggression from China, Lai's biggest job by far will be leading Taiwan through what's looking like its most precarious geopolitical era. Justin Wu and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
With Lai's victory, Jaime Okan reports on how the rest of the world is reacting to the results.
Soon after Lai Ching-te from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party claimed victory in Taiwan's presidential election, congratulatory messages came pouring in. Countries around the world like Japan, Lithuania, New Zealand, and the United States were among the first to congratulate not just President-elect Lai, but also Taiwan for holding a successful and democratic election.
我们并没有进行任何的挑衅，那台湾只是想要维持民主自由的生活体制。
But reaction to the election wasn't all positive. Neighboring China, which sees Taiwan as part of its own, took aim at Saturday's vote. Beijing says that the results don't match popular opinion in Taiwan, pointing to the fact that most people voted against Lai, as he won with 40% of the vote. Taiwan's foreign ministry rejected those claims, saying the results were part of the democratic process. In recent years, Beijing has stepped up its military coercion of Taiwan, operating military aircraft and ships around the country on an almost daily basis. Just moments before he took the victory stage, Lai addressed the media on the challenge he faces in the Taiwan Strait.
希望未来两岸都能够回到健康有序的交流。当然，也一如你所说，蔡英文总统这8年来持续不断的释出善意。 但很可惜，中国并没有给予应有的回应。
Observers around the world are concerned about a potential conflict between China and Taiwan. But for those who call Taiwan home, domestic issues like the cost of living and the low birth rate were of more concern. Positioned as the gateway to Asia and the maker of 90% of the world's most important computer chips, many analysts say that the elections highlight the importance of Taiwan to the world.
Taiwan is absolutely central to international politics. What happens across the strait does matter. Taiwan is a critical element of international supply chains, from the construction of missiles to computers, phones, and whatnot. Right, so. International prosperity, particularly in those advanced elements that make our life prosper in that sense. Taiwan is an inherent component.
President-elect Lai is set to take office in May, after current President Tsai Ing-wen wraps up her final term. As Taiwan prepares for this transition, Saturday's vote was a clear display of how one of Asia's most vibrant democracies allowed its people to freely decide its future, undeterred by whatever threats lie beyond its borders. Howard Zhang and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
With the DPP losing its legislative majority, it might be more difficult for President-elect Lai to advance his policy agenda. Eric Gao looks into the likelihood of Lai turning his policies into reality.
Not just a president elected. With his victory on Saturday, Lai Ching-te also became a curse breaker for the Democratic Progressive Party. This is the first time a party has succeeded in holding the presidency for 3 terms in a row in Taiwan's democratic era. But that joy was tempered by the DPP's performance in the legislative races, where it lost its majority. And Lai admitted it's a sign that people are not happy with the government's handling of domestic issues. He promised reflection and a willingness to work with opposition parties.
未来的施政，各党派有共识的议题，我们优先处理。 还没有共识，也没有急迫性的，让我们搁置争议，持续沟通。
Experts say it may be difficult for the DPP and the opposition camp to find consensus on China issues or foreign policy. But all 3 parties that contested the election have set out concrete plans to tackle issues that young voters care more about, such as housing prices and the cost of starting a family. Local NGO Citizen Congress Watch says the DPP still has a good chance to fulfill its campaign promises.
所以我想未来呢，3党在这相关的内政啊、民生啊、社会福利相关的议题上面， 应当有很多的合作空间啊，因为这个是民众最关心的啊。
To address inequality in the housing market, Lai has promised to build 250,000 social housing units over 8 years. The opposition parties also have their ideas to help young people get on the property ladder. A former head of Taiwan's Youth Development Administration says the challenges to getting more housing built may be more practical than political.
包括用地的取得、土地的取得，然后现在目前营造业的缺工、缺料、缺人，确实这个执行上面可能还有很多地方要去克服。
Another pressing matter for the incoming administration is low wages. The outgoing Tsai government adjusted the minimum wage 8 times over 8 years and proposed more subsidy plans. But experts believe that won't solve the fundamental problem.
产业面跟学校端，然后说它的学用落差，然后呢，透过这个整个跨部会的这个协调这个整合，能够提出一些让年轻人的这个薪资能够不要一直停滞。
Lai's victory may be seen as a vindication of the Tsai administration's handling of cross-strait affairs, but voters have handed them a humbling in the legislature and laid down a challenge to work across party lines to tackle the country's domestic problems in the next 4 years. Klein Wang, Yujing Huang, and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
With the country's next president now chosen, TaiwanPlus hit the streets of Taipei to hear what the people in the capital think about the results.
接下来总统已经选出来了，想请问一下您的感想如何呢？
我觉得就是始终没有办法推倒蓝绿的高墙，因为我觉得柯文哲是一个很正直、很诚信的，而且他是愿意做事的人。
I'm actually very happy for Taiwan because this time we see the election. The result is very different from the past histories. We have 3 parties this time that are more equally divided. So I think that's a step for the democracy, that people will see Taiwan more diverse than before because they all know we're stuck into 2 colors than before. So I think it's a huge step for Taiwan.
怕悲哀了，要打战了，希望不要搞台独啦，就打战这样的。就是大家平平安安过日子这样。
我觉得还不错，也算是在预期之内。因为其实本来就觉得应该赖清德的胜算是比较高，然后其实看下来整体的得票率就是绿蓝白其实都是在民调的范围之内，其实都是还蛮准的。希望他可以继续。把蔡英文的做得好的地方继续保持，然后也可以多听到我们年轻人觉得可能房价的问题啊，或者是其实就是他提出的这些政见可以真的有兑现。
其实有点失望。
怎么说？
因为其实我们很想政党轮替的，不管谁来做都没关系。同一个党做太久觉得不好，一党做大的话，会贪污的还是会贪污啊，继续贪污。因为没有其他人来监督他，其实什么党来做都民众都 OK， 但是我不希望说一个党在那个位置上太久。
我没有在关注，没有很热衷政治，所以我是觉得大家选谁当选就是谁啊。
2.8 million young voters were eligible to vote in Taiwan's elections on Saturday, a key group that all 3 of Taiwan's presidential candidates campaigned hard to win over. Our reporter Tiffany Wong caught up with one of them to learn about her experience voting for the first time.
今天是来投总统大选的，对。我觉得有一点紧张，我刚刚很怕会投错，我很怕我会就是盖错章。对，总统是有关于感觉有点全世界那种感觉。来，都可以直接进去了。
This is Sydney Zheng's first time voting in a presidential election in Taiwan. It's a rite of passage in a country with a high voter turnout. We accompanied her to the polling station, a small booth near the house she grew up in, to learn about her hopes for Taiwan's future.
我觉得，因为现在我是学生，所以最希望的还是说，他们可以给我们学生好一点的福利啊，或者是未来的求职机会。
Two issues facing many young people in Taiwan are few job opportunities and low wages. things that are on these voters' minds more often than geopolitical issues. People in Sydney's generation have grown up under the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, which has already been in power for 8 years. But as Sydney went to college away from home, she noticed that her friends now express their own unique political opinions, as Taiwan's political scene gets more polarized.
因为以前我觉得年轻人比较会受家庭影响，就是可能家人说哦，那你要投什么党，那他们就会顺着家人的意去走。可是现在他们，像我很多朋友，他们都会在可能脸书上面去发他们的想法，然后都是打那种小作文等级的那种长度，然后我就会知道说哦，其实现在大家对于政治越来越多热忱。
Sydney says she isn't very vocal about politics on social media, so by quietly submitting her vote, this is her first time making her voice heard on what kind of person she thinks should lead Taiwan. And regardless of the results, she's optimistic the winner will keep the people's best interest in mind.
我觉得我相信，不管今天的当选人是哪一位，他们都会愿意听我们的要求。毕竟他们现在选的是总统，那总统这个位置就是非常的重大，然后非常的重要，对人民来说。
Sydney is one of the 14 million voters in Taiwan who came out on Saturday to cast their ballot, and about 1 million were like Sydney, voting for the first time. She says that while her single vote may seem small, she knows it can still make a difference.
虽然说并不是一个我不是什么大人物，但是我的那一票，我觉得还是会去改变可能这个社会、这个世界，或者是未来可能两岸关系之类的，我觉得都会有不一样的变化。对。
Dolphin Chen, Patrick Chen, and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Saturday's legislative elections saw a clear shift towards Taiwan's opposition, and if the two main opposition parties can unite, they could bog down the ruling DPP's plans for the country. John Van Trues has this report.
Coverage of Saturday's election has focused on the presidency, where the Democratic Progressive Party won an unprecedented third consecutive term. But voters also decided on the makeup of the country's next legislature, and there, the results are more complicated. The DPP lost 10 seats and its majority in Taiwan's sole legislative house, leading opposition candidates, like this one, making a comeback to the chamber to celebrate.
批评我们的，指教我们的，指导我们的。
But the opposition doesn't have a majority either. No one party does. That's because the opposition vote fractured this year, split between the Kuomintang and its newer rival, the Taiwan People's Party. The country's legislature now has 3 minority blocs, with no one in control. Lawmakers say the question now is whether the rift in the opposition can heal.
只要民众党选择跟国民党合作的话，民进党将会是少数，恐怕我们的政局会比较相对紧张一点。
If the two parties do form an alliance, they'd have the votes to strip the DPP of its speakership and upset President-elect Lai Ching-te's plans for the country. But if the presidential race is anything to go by, an alliance could be out of reach. The KMT and TPP tried and failed to form a joint presidential ticket, and there's no sign of a reconciliation yet. The Taiwan People's Party has made its mission to disrupt Taiwan's two-party system, becoming a viable third force in its own right, not just a junior partner. For its part, the Democratic Progressive Party knows it must find common ground with its opponents to move its agenda forward, something President-elect Lai Ching-te spoke about even as he declared victory.
未来不仅仅我会打造开放政府、公开透明以外。 也会跟在野党进行沟通、交流、参与、合作。
The new legislative session starts February 1st. When it opens, Taiwan will have no legislative majority for the first time since the early 2000s. Without a clear leader, the 3 blocs will have to find partners to advance legislation, meaning opportunities ahead for skillful power brokers. Dolphin Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has elected its first openly LGBTQ+ legislator. Kaohsiung City Councilor Huang Jie was elected to represent the Southern Port City's 6th district. The 30-year-old got 51% of the vote. She will also be one of the legislature's youngest members.
70天的选举真的很不容易，政治史上没有发生过，我们做到了。 完成这个历史的时刻，30岁的年轻人在高雄也可以出头天。
That wraps up our coverage of Taiwan's national elections. If you want to go back and watch our live show of the results, visit TaiwanPlus.com. Turning now to international news, the world is marking 100 days since Hamas attacked Israel, sparking a lethal response that has killed tens of thousands in the Gaza Strip. And now people around the world are saying enough is enough. Laurel Stewart reports.
Counting to 100. That's how many days it's been since the militant group controlling the Gaza Strip rampaged through Israeli communities near the Gaza border. October 7th ended with Hamas killing 1,200 people and taking 240 hostages. In the days following the attack, Israel vowed to wipe out Hamas and began bombarding Gaza. The offensive has since claimed close to 24,000 lives. Hamas released 105 hostages during a temporary ceasefire in November, but family members of those still being held say the continued bombing of Gaza is making it harder for hostages to get home.
We're calling the Red Cross, we are calling the UNRWA, we are calling the UNICEF, we are calling our government to do much more. It's not 100 days, it's a long time for young people, old people, ill people, to be there in jail under the ground.
But Israel says it won't stop until Hamas is completely destroyed. In the past 24 hours, it's pummeled Gaza with 12 airstrikes.
אף אחד לא יעצור אותנו. לא האג, לא ציר הרשע, ולא אף אחד אחר.
It comes as the World Court hears a lawsuit against Israel, accusing it of genocide. South Africa, which launched the case, says Israel's killing of around 24,000 Palestinians in Gaza, as well as blockades on essentials like food, water, electricity and medicine, are war crimes and acts of genocide. And people around the world are protesting Israel's campaign in Gaza. More than 10,000 children have been killed there since the war began in October.
Mustafa Iyad Shaban, 9 years old.
We're hoping that, by marching, we'll have our leaders taking the initiative and preventing the genocide that is taking place today.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
People in the US are calling on their government to stop sending weapons to Israel.
Why our money is being spent on killing innocent civilians? Those guys are, they don't have arms.
Israel has resisted the calls for a ceasefire, saying the war will be over when Hamas is defeated, even as the situation threatens to escalate into a wider conflict. Meanwhile, civilians in Gaza are living in ruins and simply trying to stay alive. Scott Huang and Laurel Stewart for TaiwanPlus.
Yemen's Houthi rebel group has held military exercises in the country's northwest, threatening a strong response to U.S. strikes against it. The drills follow airstrikes by the U.S. and UK on Houthi drone and missile facilities. Those were part of an international effort to stop Houthi attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The strikes add to concerns of escalating conflict in the region after the latest fighting between Israel and Hamas militants controlling the Gaza Strip. A volcano in Indonesia has erupted, spewing a massive column of smoke and ash more than a kilometer into the air. Ash has blanketed roads and vehicles surrounding Mount Merapi after the Sunday eruption. No casualties have been reported, but health officials are advising people to wear face masks. At least 100 residents were evacuated after authorities issued a high-level alert last week. The volcano is prone to sudden eruptions, with the last one killing 24 climbers in early December. A short cruise aboard an icebreaker is a popular option for sightseers near the Arctic Circle. Our reporter Cindy Chi has the details.
The kitchen is waiting for you. A lot of you are going to eat some lunch.
Floating in the icy Baltic Sea between Finland and Sweden on the edge of the Arctic Circle. These are not professional polar explorers, but people who signed up for a cruise on an icebreaker named Polar Explorer.
It has a special icebreaker bow on it, and compared to a similar vessel not designed for icebreaking, then you have more horsepower.
The ship was originally built as a commercial icebreaker, but is now used to bring tourists on a 3-hour trip to this icy part of the world. It's been adapted for sightseeing, with crew cabins removed to make more room for guests.
It's a big responsibility, but that's a part of the game here. That's why we are doing this. It's to take out people and show them how we make ice roads.
Standing out on the deck offers majestic views. And when conditions are not too cold, the tourists also get the rare opportunity to plunge into the icy waters with flotation suits over their normal clothes. They are made of double-layered 6mm thick neoprene that can help people starfish in the water easily.
Normally everyone swims. Even people are not considering in the beginning. They think, no, that's not for me, it's too scary, too dangerous, too cold. When they see, they understand that it's not scary at all. And everyone, you don't have to have swimming skills. You cannot drown in these suits. And they're very warm.
I loved it. It was everything I hoped it would be in the river.
The Polar Explorer cruise operates during the winter months and departs from the Swedish side of the border with Finland. A 3-hour cruise costs a little over $300 per person. The company expects to see up to 18,000 people signing up for the cruise this winter season. Isan Chen and Sanny Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.